Hey everybody, this is my 125 gallon New World tank, and I just wanted to shoot a quick update today. I've been doing a little bit of an experiment with the nitrate level and my canister filter to see how quickly the nitrate rises after a big water change, and it's been a little more than a week. We're just getting to the point where the nitrate level is getting to where I want to sort of make some changes into the tank, but I don't think we're going to be able to really continue with this experiment, at least not for the moment. And the reason is I think I really need to get in here and finally get some work done in this tank. I've been talking for a little while now about getting in here and clearing out this great big piece of wood in the tank. I know you can't really see from the way everything's in there, but this piece of wood actually goes in and goes all the way down there. If you see this piece of wood sticking out, that is actually part of this. So that is a huge piece of wood in addition to this huge piece of wood that you can see sticking up and out in the end. This is something different. That one right there is actually just lying across the top. But this little piece here is part of this big root ball. And then I've got another big log down here that comes up and sticks out the end. So a lot of the inside of the space in this tank is taken up with woodwork. And my fish are getting bigger and they're getting more active, and once we see my big shiner, there you can see, well, there, now you can see it. I've been watching the side of that fish for several days now, and it is healing up nicely, but when I first saw it, it looked awful, and it took me a little while to figure out exactly what it was. I thought maybe it was some kind of infection or something at first, but what I figured out that it was a bunch of scales had been ripped off the side of it. It looked like somebody had started scaling the fish. And I think what probably happened was it got itself wedged in somewhere, and as it wriggled itself out, it descaled itself in a few places. I've got a little spot on this shiner here that looks a little bit white and damaged, and I recently had one of my silver dollars have some scrapes and some marks on its side, and I had to make sure that that got all healed up nicely. So I definitely think it is the overcrowded conditions in the tank with all of that woodwork piled in there. So we'll talk about what I've discovered so far with the nitrate and the filter and everything. I really think that what my initial suspicions is going to turn out to be true, and that is that the canister filter is not the nitrate factory that everybody thinks it is. That once that mulm and stuff gets in the filter and gets broken down, it's broken down. It doesn't continue breaking down and just keep adding and adding and adding to the nitrate in the tank. So again, we'll talk more about that. I just wanted to do a quick update. It's been kind of a hectic week for me, and my videos have been a little bit abrupt as of late because I haven't had a whole lot of time to get in here and really sit down and shoot some better quality videos. So hopefully over the next few days I'll be able to get in here and get some more stuff done, and we'll be able to get to do a little more videos that I've got in mind. But I did want to update everybody on what's going on in this tank. So if you've been sort of following along watching the videos about the nitrate, we will still talk more about that. I can do a similar type experiment in another tank, or even do it in this tank once I've got it cleaned out a little bit. But I need to remove a few of those fish. I need to get a lot of that woodwork out of there, and we're just going to do a sort of general overhaul on this tank coming up here in the very near future. I also want to talk a little bit about this tank. This is my native tank, and it's got some fish in it that I have identified, or I should say that some of my viewers have identified for me as being log perch, and they are really, really cool fish, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep them alive or not. So we will be shooting a video talking about this coming up in the near future. I want to talk about the log perch and how to keep them alive, whether or not I'm going to be able to keep them alive. Oh, there's one now. If you see that little tiny fish right there underneath that piece of wood, that's one of the log perch I'm talking about. It's a species of darter, and they're predatory, and they have a highly specialized diet. They eat micro worms and crustaceans, and basically all of the stuff that would live in the offwuchs, all that surface growth, that's the stuff that they would feed on. And I don't know if they're going to feed on the kinds of food I put in the tank, and I don't know if I've got enough offwuchs and stuff in there growing to support them. So again, we'll talk a little bit more about it in depth. I was thinking about doing a chemi-clean treatment in this tank. You can see a little bit of this bright green. That is that cyanobacteria that's starting to develop. You can see a little more of it on that rock right there. And I thought, you know, just to get ahead of it, I would go ahead and do a chemi-clean treatment to kill that off before it really got a hold in the tank. But I realized if I do that, I'm going to kill all of the off-walks too. I'm going to kill all of that surface growth off of all those rocks and all that stuff. And I think that would pretty much immediately starve those little log perch. I've got 2 of them in here. And I want more. They are not a gregarious fish necessarily, but they can swim around in groups. They're not necessarily aggressive either. So it's not like they won't swim around in a small group if I have several of them in here. So I'm going to look more into that. We might have to go out to the stream and catch more, not only catch more fish, but collect more woodwork and maybe even some big rocks with some natural growth and stuff on them. And as scary as it might be to just bring home all of that growth and all that living stuff directly from the stream into my aquarium, that might be necessary in order to get the right kind of, look at him using his feelers trying to figure out what we are. So that might be necessary in order to get enough food in there for that little log perch to be able to survive. Really, really fascinating little fish though. I was watching one the other day and I think they are finding some stuff. It is like pecking at the wood, it's pecking at the rock surfaces, so I'm assuming it's picking up little bits and pieces of food, but it's certainly not picking up any that I've put in. I've put in tubifex and shrimp pellets and flakes and all kinds of stuff, and I've watched the fish completely ignore it. Every time it goes after something, it does kind of what you're seeing now, like it goes down into the rocks and grabs a hold of something like that. So hopefully it really is still finding food and eating. That's actually the most eating-like behavior I've seen of these fish since I've been watching them. I'm glad we got that on video. So hopefully they are still feeding and doing well. Like I said, I've got 2 of them in here. I should say I put 2 of them in here. I don't know if I still have 2 of them or not, but we started with 2 of them. So we've got that little guy. We've also got, if you can see right there on that rock, is that sculpin lying underneath of that piece of wood. That's another cool little fish, but again, with its diet, it's a little predatory fish, and I don't know if I've got enough of the kind of food in here that would work for that. Maybe I'll start throwing some guppy fry in here, or hopefully the gambusia will start breeding, and maybe the fry swimming around would become a food source for that sculpin. But that's another one that I've never been able to keep alive. I always attributed it to the crayfish catching and killing it. But I think it might actually be starving. I think I might not be having the right kind of food to put in the tank. So we'll see about that. That's another thing I wanted to talk about and update. We also need to get the filter replaced in there. You can see how low the water flow is at this point. It should be splashing out of there. That's what the whole point of that backdrop is right there. It just catches all the splashing water. I know it's not particularly attractive, but without it, it gets all over my wall, and quite frankly that wood paneling is not particularly attractive either, so who cares? It can't be worse looking than that black stuff. So my final little bit of this update is going to be a quick discussion of my 125. I've been doing a chemi-clean treatment on this, and you can see like on the wood here, the rock, all that off walks, how like dead that looks. That is dead. If I got in there with a brush, I could just gently brush that off and you'd be able to see the rock being exposed again. But the off-walks grazers I have in this tank, the little plecos I have on the bottom, will now start doing their job, and they'll get in there and they'll start scraping all that stuff clean. You can already see where they're starting to clean the rocks off. All that sort of fuzzy green appearance is not cyanobacteria. That is hair algae, and that's growing on a few things. But you can see how sort of dead and died off all that brown crud is. I used to have that bright green growing all over the top of this wood, and it's now just sort of dead and died off. This little bit of green you can see here is actually the Java Windalov that is starting to sprout and grow back out. When I had it in there before, the roots must have gotten into the wood enough that when I pulled the whole mass off, it left some roots behind, and now the roots are actually starting to send more green shoots directly, or it appears to be, directly out of the wood. but you can see how sort of killed off and dead all this stuff is. So that's from the ChemiClean treatment that I've been doing. So we'll be talking about this tank here in the fairly near future too. Once I get in there and we get it cleaned up, I'm gonna have to do a big water change, wipe the glass down again, and sort of get a lot of this crud, you know, kind of knocked loose and cleared out of the tank, and it'll just get the tank looking a lot better in a generalized sort of way. So there you go, that's my update. I guess we can do a really super quick update on my 20-gallon angelfish tank here. This one is also getting a ChemiClean treatment and is more or less done. It's just a matter of me getting in there, doing that final water change, pulling the air stone out, and calling it good. But you can see how nice and cleaned up everything looks. For a minute on the camera, I was looking into the viewfinder, and that looked like a big patch of dark green, but it's not. It's actually a hole in the frond there, or in the leaf, whatever you want to call it. So this tank got a ChemiClean treatment too, and you can see it looks really good. The bottom substrate is all nice and gravelly looking again, and all that bright green carpet that tends to grow in this tank over time has been wiped out once again. And so we're sort of resetting the clock again. All these tanks are going to need a treatment again within, you know, 6 to 9 months. It's just part of the regular maintenance on these tanks. So there's a little look at my Tenopoma. And I will leave you with a final look at my waterfall tank and say thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure you're subscribed. I really will be getting in here hopefully in the next few days and getting on top of a few of these things that I really need to get taken care of. But again, it's been a little bit hectic as of late, so bear with me and we'll get it all done. If you're subscribed, you won't miss any of that or anything else I got coming up. You never know what it's going to be with me. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, this tank here is my waterfall. I'll see you real soon in the next one.